you do not have the questions for today, that's 2 Samuel 14, 18 through 33. Jackie's got those, so raise your hand so you'll have them for today. Okay. Very good. I think we're good now. True or false? David had many wives. True. David had many children by many wives. Yes. True or false? This caused a problem. True. There was one son of David's who had a liking for one of his half-sisters. Who was that? Yes, Amnon had a liking for his half-sister whose name was Tamar. He sets up a scenario so he can bring her into his room, and he rapes Tamar and then sends her back to her brother's house. Who is Tamar's brother? Absalom. Yes, Absalom is Tamar's brother. And Absalom tells Tamar, I'll take care of this, didn't he? Basically. And did he do that? Oh yes. How did he do that? Yes, he had his servants kill Amnon, and then he fled, did he not? He fled to Geshur, and he was there with his grandfather, wasn't he? And did David want him back? No. The Bible says that David's heart was toward Absalom, but what it means is it was toward Absalom in an evil sense. Okay? He was still angry and upset with Absalom, and so Absalom is now no longer a part of Jerusalem, no longer a part of the royal family. He's living away in another country not far from Israel. And there is somebody, however, who wants Absalom back. Who is that? Joab. Who is Joab? Yes, he is the commander, the captain of, watch this, David's forces. Okay? It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Why would Joab want Absalom back? Okay? Why? Well, we know that he does, don't we? And so he's got to try somehow to overcome this hatred or this dislike or this opposition that David has toward Absalom. So who does he get to help him? Yes, a woman of Tekoa. That's all we know her by. We don't know her name, but we do know she is a blank woman. A wise woman. See, y'all are good. Y'all are remembering this stuff. I like that. She's a wise woman, and Joab tells her everything to say, right? And she walks into David, and she just says, we want Absalom back. No? Well, what does she do? Oh, yes. She tells a pretty little story that breaks the heart of David, doesn't it? And he says that he will protect her and he will protect his son that has committed murder, and nobody's hands will be laid upon her. And then she says, well, let me go. Just one more thing, Dave, just one more thing. And that's when she does what? Yes, she lets him know that she's really talking about Absalom, isn't she? The stories don't parallel, but they are alike enough that David gets the message, doesn't he? Okay, so that's where we ended our studies last time, okay? She is fully aware. She's revealed everything she needs to reveal about this. And I've entitled this section, 2 Samuel 14, 18 through 33, The Return of Absalom to Jerusalem. Okay, the return of Absalom to Jerusalem. Who has an outline for us of the text? Anybody? All right, Marilyn. Oh, no, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. Wait. Don't say anything yet. Wait. We will laugh if it's funny. Okay. What is it? Through lies? True lies, okay. The truth and forgiveness. Oh, Joab ignores Absalom's request. Okay, and then what's the last? That's it? Anybody else? All right, here we go. David what? David discerns. Point number 1. David forgives. Number 2. Absalom, just a handsome face. Okay, Absalom pressures Joab. Reconciliation. Wow, that's pretty good stuff. Okay, here we go. You've got 2 ladies who come from other countries and other backgrounds. Okay, and so we have to discern that, and now you have to discern country. Okay, because I speak country. And number 1, David's inquiry. Number 2, David's instructions. Number 3, Absalom's increase. Number 4, Absalom's insistence. And then lastly, Joab's intercession. So there's my outline for the chapter. So let's go through it, ask the questions, and see what transpires. True or false? David was going to ask the woman of Tekoa a question, and he did not want the answer hidden from him. True. Here's what the text says. Then the king answered and said unto the woman, Hide not from me, I pray thee, the thing that I shall ask thee. Mike and I were talking a couple of weeks ago after the class. And remember we talked about this woman. How did she present herself to David, this woman of Tekoa? Yeah, a very poor woman, a mourner, right? And she hadn't taken a bath in a while, right? So she'd have this smell, okay? And so he made a mention to me something. I said this, having heard all the woman had to say, the king smelled something more than a mourner. Thus he was going to probe into his suspicions, okay? He smelled something more than a mourner. Notice that he tells the woman, don't you dare what? Don't you dare hide anything from me. Okay? Don't cover the truth. Okay? Don't try to beat around the truth. You don't hide a thing from me relative to what I'm about to ask. Okay? Is that a dangerous position to be in? Okay? I'm going to ask you a question, and don't you hide anything from me. And you're going, oh, man. Okay? True or false? The woman did not want David to ask his question. False. And the woman said, Let my lord the king now speak. Boy, she's just set herself up, hadn't she? Okay? Because she's now told David, okay, ask away, and I won't cover anything up. Larry?
We used to have a lawyer for the school board, and his philosophy was, if you don't want to know the answer, don't ask the question.
Absolutely. And if you don't want to give the answer, don't agree what? Not to hide it. That's for certain. And the king said, Is not the blank of blank with thee in all this? Oh, is not the hand of Joab with thee in all this? Now, that's another interesting question, is it not? Okay? Because we have Joab wanting Absalom back, right? And we wonder why. And we also have David knowing that this isn't the woman asking this question. This is who asking the question? This is Joab answering the question. So, folks, behind the scenes in all of this stuff, there is a lot of stuff that's going on, okay? And there's probably a lot of talk and a lot of feelings being revealed and things that the biblical text doesn't let us know, because as soon as this woman mentions Absalom, then David knows this is who? This is Joab. Okay, so somehow David knew. What does the phrase, none can turn to the right hand or to the left hand from aught that my lord the king hath spoken mean? What does that mean? Okay, he's told the truth. Okay. Okay, there's no deviation from the truth. In other words, what she's saying is, what you have said right here is exactly true, isn't it? Joab is the one what? behind all this. She just reveals that he's exactly right. You haven't turned to the left hand. You haven't weaved to the right hand. You are right on what? You are right on point. Yep, Joab is the one responsible. Okay, and the woman answered and said, As thy soul liveth, my lord the king, none can turn to the right hand or the left hand aught that my lord the king hath spoken. So she lets him know, yep, you're right. You knew Joab was behind it, and he is. True or false? The woman admits that Joab had put all the words of her story into her mouth. True. For thy servant Joab, he bade me, and he put all these words in the mouth of thine handmaid. To fetch about this form of speech hath thy servant Joab done this thing. I find it interesting. She's not shy at all to let what be known? That Joab is behind this. Is she? I'm wondering, do you think Joab and she had already talked about this? Bible doesn't say, okay? But there's a good possibility when this woman goes in, there's a good possibility David's going to know who's behind all this stuff, right? And so Joab may have told her, if the king asks you, just what? Just tell him the truth. Yep, I'm behind this. Okay, we don't know that for certain, but the woman, she doesn't hesitate to spill the goods on Joab, does she? Okay, not at all. I don't know. Yeah. And the way she answers him back after she says, yes, it's right, she probably is trying to cover herself. Because listen to some things that she says. Because David perceived Joab's involvement in this matter, the woman commended what attribute of David? His wisdom. She says this, and my Lord is wise. Boy, you know, yeah. She is really, like you said, buttering up the king, isn't she? She says, you know, I don't even know how you got this. I don't know how you guessed this. You're just so what? You're just so wise. Okay? So she let, you know, does a man like to be told that he's wise? Women? Got that? No matter whether he is or ain't, just tell him he is. Okay? Make him feel good. You know? You're one of the wisest men on the planet. Ooh, boy. You know? The woman of Tekoa compares David's wisdom to the wisdom of an blank. An angel. Listen to this. According to the wisdom of an angel of God to know things that are in the earth. Wow. What is our view of angels? Okay, messengers of God. Spiritual beings, created beings. That's it. That's the best we can do. That's really our view of angels. When you think of an angel, that's what that's an old created being, messenger, you know. Or do you have a high, lofty view of an angel? Okay? Guys, when I think of an angel, I don't think of a human being, do you? You know? I think of this being who has superpower. And this being who knows things that you and I don't know, right? Individuals who are around the throne of God. Folks, can you imagine being in the presence of God? Beings that are holy. Okay? Yeah. You know, and so here she is. She brags on David and she says, you have the wisdom of what? Of an angel. Wow. Now, ladies, listen to me. You know, if you're going to do it, go all the way. Right? If you're going to brag on that man and say he has wisdom, you let him know, boy, you got the wisdom of an angel. He'll love you for the rest of the afternoon. Clark says that this is a form of Asian flattery. Okay? To tell someone that you have the wisdom of an angel. She was intentionally trying to flatter David on this particular occasion, okay? And probably because, like Jim had said, she may be somewhat fearful because she's been put in a pretty precarious situation, hasn't she? Okay, she's stuck between Joab and David, and like he says, revealed something that's really not the truth, has ulterior motives, trying to get Absalom back, somebody that he doesn't really care for right now. She's put herself in a very difficult position. So now she's kind of buttering up to David and telling him how smart and wise that he is. What did David tell Joab to do? And the king said unto Joab, Behold now, I have done this. Go therefore, bring the young man Absalom again. I want you to note something in the text, okay? I can't prove this, okay? Folks, it appears that Joab was right there, doesn't it? The king didn't send for Joab. The Bible says, and he said to Joab. You see, when this woman came before the king, remember one of the questions that we asked? How did she get there? Folks, it's not easy to get a presence before the king of Israel. Just a little woman of Tekoa. How does she get in before the king? I'll tell you how she got in. She got in because Joab made that possible, and he was probably what? Standing right there. Now, folks, does that make the whole story even more interesting? You know, because all of a sudden David says, let me ask you one more question, and don't you hide a thing from me. Was Joab in this? And Joab's going, oh. And she says, what? She just turns around there and looks at you. Yes, he was. And the king said unto Joab, folks, he didn't have to go anywhere. He just turned to Joab and said, what? Joab, I'll grant your request. Go get Absalom. Jim? That's no reflection on you women, okay? Yeah, and he probably was the one who gave her access. Plus, was it customary for a king to have people around him when individuals come to visit him? You know, you're not there all by yourself most of the time. There's an entourage that's around you, and they usually are composed of some very high, powerful individuals in your staff. So it sounds like Joab was probably there, and boy, his being there would definitely add a unique dimension to the story. When Joab heard David's words, what were the first two things he did? He bowed and what? Thanked the king. Joab fell to the ground on his face and bowed himself and thanked the king. Wow. What's that? He said he got out from under the bus he was thrown under. Folks, it's just customary, is it not, to show respect and honor to who? To the king. Okay? And now that Joab's been granted his request, he falls down before him and gives thanks. Now listen to this next statement. And Joab said, Today thy servant knoweth that I have found blank in thy sight. Grace. I have found grace in thy sight. That little word grace means gracious, kindness, favor. Brown Driver and Briggs says it means favor, grace, or acceptance. Here's what was interesting to me. David gave grace to who? Joab. David gave grace to Joab. Folks, here's the lesson. It is possible for us to give grace to other people. Isn't that something? And we don't think about that very often. It's possible for us to give grace to other people. When we go to another individual and we make a request of them, and that individual honors our request and gives us the thing that we desire, guess what we have just received? Grace from that individual. Okay? Is that the way we look at it? No, a lot of times we look at it as what? Well, I deserved it anyway. You know, he should have given me this about a month ago. He should have known that I needed this, right? Hey folks, when somebody gives you something, and they extend favor and kindness to you, they are giving you grace. Okay? Now, think about it this way. We go to God, don't we? And we fall down before His throne and give thanks. And we offer up our requests unto Him. And guess what? Does He give them? Yes. And guess what God is giving us? Grace. Folks, grace is not just the forgiveness of sins. It is that, isn't it? Because it's divine kindness, isn't it? It's divine help. But grace is also the answer to every prayer that we ask and get from God. It's His grace. Even if He answers it negatively, it still is what? It's still His grace to us. Okay? And we need to realize that. Jim?
I was going to say that Joab went there to tempest against the king, and David found out and didn't punish him, so it showed him mercy.
Yep.
And then retained him as his captain, showing him grace.
A bunch of it. Yeah, just the allowing Absalom to come back is a big deal, isn't it? Especially when his heart was what? His heart was toward Absalom. His heart was against the man. He was in opposition to the man, and yet he allows a man that he is against to be what? Brought back to Jerusalem. That's a pretty big kindness, isn't it, on that day? Why did Joab feel he received grace from God? Because he fulfilled his request, folks. That's what he says. My Lord, O King, in that the king hath fulfilled the request of his servant. So blank arose and went to Geshur and brought blank to Jerusalem. Joab arose and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. The son is back, isn't he? The son is back. My question was this. I wonder if Absalom and Joab had been in contact with one another during this time period. You think they had? You know, I don't think Joab just showed up on Absalom's doorstep and said, hey, Joab, guess what? I went to work for you. You can come back to Jerusalem now. I bet that dude was packed and had his U-Haul ready to go. You know that? I bet they were in cahoots with one another, if the truth be known, because David knew who was behind this, didn't he? Folks, there's more to this story than just the Bible gives us, okay? But we have to stick with what the Scripture says. Why did David refuse to allow Absalom to see upon his return? His face. Now see here we get an indication of where David is, don't we? Joab wasted no time in bringing Absalom to Jerusalem, but David refused to let him see his face. Yeah, he can come back. But guess what? He can't see me. Who is he? Who is this man? He's the king's son. And folks, most likely in his mind, now that Amnon is dead, Amnon is what? He's the firstborn. So he's in line for the kingship, right? Absalom probably thinks, I am now what? Closer to getting the position of king. Okay, now that the firstborn is dead. And so, very, very interesting. But we see here that David would not let him see his face. True or false? When Absalom arrived in Jerusalem, the first thing he saw was David's face. False. False. And the king said, let him turn to his own house and let him not see my face. And he did not, according to the text.
Wasn't there a reference, I think it was when they were talking about the appearance of Absalom, that the people wanted him back?
Yeah, well, even the woman, when she was making her plea to David and she brings up Absalom, she makes that very comment, is that you're really going even against what the people want in the nation of Israel. So yeah, it's that idea is out there for certain. Kyle and DeLitch say this. They believe that this was just bitter fruit from David. Okay, you kind of tricked me into bringing him back. Yeah, you can bring him back, but guess what? He can't see me. So just bitter fruit. Clark believes that David was showing disdain for the crime, but a respect for justice. Okay? He's paid enough. He's still a criminal, though, and because of his actions, he won't get to see who? He won't get to see me, the king. Barnes says that some of this banishment came from the influence of Bathsheba, for for the sake of Solomon. Isn't that interesting? You know, why would David bring him back, but not what? But not let him see his face? Why would you do that? There's got to be some reason that's there, isn't there? And so individuals are trying to figure out why that was. And guess what the answer is? That's another question in your notebook when you get to heaven. Hey, Dave, come here. You know, you let Absalom back, but you wouldn't let him see your face. I want to know why. What was going on? That'll be an interesting conversation for certain. For what was Absalom praised? But in all Israel, there was none to be so much praised as Absalom for his beauty. Man, we don't talk like that about men nowadays, do we? Pretty men, beautiful men. Okay? Let me ask you this. Is the public always influenced by outward appearance? Yeah. What's the deal, man? You know? Why are we so caught up in appearance? And we are, aren't we? If you're pretty, if you're beautiful, if you're handsome, if you're gorgeous, guess what? You'll go places, right? If you're ugly, you just aren't going places where these good-looking ones are. Most of the time, right? But it's easy to take advantage of a person's beauty, isn't it? And Absalom's going to do that. From the sole of his blank, even unto the blank of his blank, there was no blemish. From where? Yes, from the sole of his foot, even to the crown of his head, there was no blemish. What's that? Yes, I think you said something. What did you say about him a while ago in your outline? Just a handsome face. I think Absalom's kind of wooed Abby. Okay, she's kind of wooed by him. She said, "Woo, man, you know, no blemish, perfect, right? Just a handsome man." And he was, folks. Here's a weird statement. What did Absalom do to his hair every year? No, that's not what the Bible says. Y'all ruin everything. Yes, and when he polled his hair, I thought, I need to learn how to do that. For it was at every year's end that he polled it, because it was heavy on him. Therefore he polled it. Boy, guess what he did to his hair? He polled it. It said 3 times in there he polled it, didn't he? What does it mean to poll it? To shave it. Yes, to be shaved, to shave off, to be bald. Did he have a heavy head of hair? Yes, listen to the text. He weighed the hair of his head at 200 shekels after the king's weight. Man, 200 shekels. Anybody look that up, try to find out how much hair that was? Huh? 58 point. Okay, that's the worth of it. Okay, what's the weight of it? 5 pounds. Yeah, every commentator, it's very hard to know all of these old-time weights and measures, but most individuals say somewhere between 5 to 6 pounds. Okay, 5 to 6. Can you imagine that hanging on your head? Okay, that's a lot of hair, isn't it, Bev? What's that? Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that. Make up for it on the back end? Goodness gracious. Just pull that stuff over, huh? I'm glad Brett's not here today. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. He's probably watching online. Guys, Absalom's hair would grow thick and long, okay? Is that unusual for a man? To be able to grow thick, long, beautiful hair? It's not easy for a man usually. There are some men who can do it and pull it off, but not very many. Jim? Yep, it's heavy, Okay, can you imagine? You know, I bet he had a strong neck, don't you? You got 6 pounds, you know, you nod a little bit, you know, don't know where your head's going to go with that much. So what did he do? He pulled it. Now, next time you call your hairdresser, here's what I want you to say. Hey, I need to set up an appointment to have my hair pulled. And you just see what she says, okay? How many children did Absalom have? Yes, he had 3 sons. Folks, listen to 2 Samuel 18:18. Now, Absalom in his lifetime had taken and reared up for himself a pillar, which is in the king's dale. For he said, I have not son to keep my name in remembrance. Now, the Bible says he had what? 3 sons. Guess what happened to them? All 3 of them died at an early age. Okay? And he says, I have no son by whom I can be remembered. Sad, isn't it? Okay? Jim?
I was thinking, though, that he took over as the leader of the family since he was the oldest.
Well, there's one before. There's a one son in between him and Amnon. Okay, but he's this one in between is kind of a nobody.
I'm talking about being the same David's father and who was his mother. In other words, having 3 in his line. See what I'm saying?
No.
Being the older brother.
Well, all it is you have a brother whose sister was Tamar, who'd been defiled. And so what does he do? When he has a daughter, what does he name her? He names his daughter Tamar. That's his daughter. It's Tamar's niece. He names her after his sister, kind of in honor of her for having been defiled. Okay? He just shows honor to his sister by naming his child after what? After the sister. Because could she have children? Tamar never had children, okay? And so when Absalom has a daughter, he names her Tamar. Very, very interesting, okay? What's that? No, the biblical text, doesn't give us that. That's for certain. We'd have to find out about that, wouldn't we? How is this daughter described? What does she have? She's got a beautiful countenance. How long was Absalom in Jerusalem and had not seen David's face? How long? Yes, so Absalom dwelt 2 full years in Jerusalem and saw not the king's face. Folks, was David pretty set in his dislike of Absalom? Bring him back, but he's not going to see me. Folks, David is opposed to Absalom right now. Okay? Boy, we don't have time to get into all this. How many times did Absalom try to approach Joab for him to do something for him? 2 times, right? Caught him twice. The question that I asked was this. Why did Joab refuse to answer the request of Absalom this time? You know? There's another one, isn't it? You know? Somewhere we're going to have to ask that question. He had worked, hadn't he? He'd worked hard to get Absalom just back to Jerusalem. That was a big deal, you know? Do you ever get to the point where you've done enough for a person? I've done enough, that's it, I got you here, now it's your business, right? Well, that's not the way Absalom saw it. So, in order to get Absalom's attention, what did he do? Oh, he burned his barley field. Folks, 2 points. Okay, number 1, property was valuable. Much of an individual's wealth was determined by how much property he owned. And not only did this man have property, he had property that could produce. That was a second means of income, wasn't it? A second means of wealth, because he was producing barley on it. So he burned the barley, he's burning his wealth. Okay? I put this down. How many of us would think that Absalom's deed was lawful? He wanted to get what? He wanted to get Joab's attention, right? Go burn his barley field. Do you think that's a lawful way to handle that? Nobody does. I put down this, though. Yet, this is what's going on in our streets of this nation almost every day. Isn't it? I want to get your attention, so guess what I'll do? I'll burn your buildings. I'll beat up individuals. I'll loot and rob stores. I'll do whatever I've got to do. I'm going to get your attention, folks. That's the mindset of who? That's the mindset of Absalom. And if you condemn Absalom for it, then guess what you better do? You better rise up, and we need to condemn this mess that's going on in our nation. Okay? It's chaos, and Absalom was wrong. Did it work? Oh, yes, it worked. Then Joab arose and came to Absalom's house, and he said unto him, Wherefore have thy servant set my field on fire? Absalom said what? Behold, I sent unto thee, saying, Come hither, that I may send thee to the king to say, Wherefore am I come from Geshur? I tried twice, and you wouldn't come. So it's your fault I did what? I burned your barley field. That's basically what he's telling him, right? And folks, isn't that the same excuse being used today? We tried, and you won't listen, so guess what? We got to get your attention somehow. And individuals think that's okay. Folks, we've got a lot of work to do. Man, did Joab go and make an appeal on behalf of Absalom? Yes. Did he go in to see David? Yes. When he went in, he bowed before him, and what did the king do? The king kissed his son. Okay, he kissed his son. There appears to have been some reconciliation between the two men, right? Who is that good for? It's only good for Absalom, folks. I'll guarantee you. We'll talk about it more, answer your questions, and we'll crank it up. Hey.